No one has more state pride than New Mexicans. The vibrant culture, bold flavors, unique history, and dramatic landscapes under our Zia sun are like no other. And the people of New Mexico are a rare breed. As diverse as we are, together we breathe life and soul into this high desert land. A land that promises adventure. I'm Michael Newman, and as your host, I'll be taking you with me as I seek out the best the land of enchantment has to offer.
New Mexico, it feels like home to me. It feels so true. It's time well spent when I spend it with you.
Thanks for tuning in for another episode of New Mexico True Television. I'm your host, Michael Newman. In this episode, we ramble from the Gila Wilderness to the Mesilla Valley, along with a couple stops along El Camino Real. Tucked in the Mesilla Valley, a quick 13 miles north of Las Cruces on I-25, is the family-owned and operated Fort Seldon Winery. Across the road from the adobe ruins of the Fort Seldon Historic Site, the winery of the same name has its own allure, a gorgeous setting, and of course, the wine. And while I certainly intend to sample some of the blends later today, for now, my task is to pick some grapes. That's right, each year proprietors Desiree and Franklin welcome people to their vineyards to take part in the harvest of the grapes, treating them to a huge feast and, of course, wine afterwards. How can I resist? All right. Got my basket, got some cutters ready to go. Let's go make wine. It's like some are green, some are red.
But just pick the white variety and then we'll move over to the purple variety afterwards.
Sounds like a plan to me. We all set out kind of wandering through the vines until we find our spot where we can plop down and get to work. I think I'm cutting the right thing. I'm gonna try to follow where the vine goes and get to the source, but there's a lot of them in here. So is there like a prize at the end for the person who gets the most?
I'm hoping.
Nothing like a little competition?
That's right.
All right, well, let's make a deal. I'll watch out for your fingers. You watch
Yes,
out.
yeah.
It's not a bad day in the office. I'm not the only one enjoying myself. Everyone around me seems content in their task and just being outdoors. It's surprisingly relaxing, not to mention the satisfaction when you get a really nice bunch of grapes.
We've got some good bunches here.
That's a good one. With having harvested all of the white grapes, it was time to move on to the reds. Looks like I may be late to the party. Time to get down to business. I feel like I've been doing this my whole life. I'm actually starting to get in a little flow right now. And it's like you can't even keep track of time. It just in the zone, man. You know, there's something very elemental about picking fruits and vegetables with people in the field. It's like we've been doing it for thousands of years, so. Takes us back to our roots, pun intended. See what I did there?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's like the Roman kings just eat off the vine like this. Beautiful.
Or emperors.
Or emperors.
Kings, emperors.
No, all the same. It's all semantics, really. So what's the next step? What are we doing now?
What we do now, after you guys got all the grapes, is I'm washing all the dirt off of them.
Mm-hmm.
We don't use pesticides or anything,
Okay.
so we don't have to worry about that. This is really just getting dirt, sand.
Okay.
And what we're going to do is we're going to take these baskets over to the destemmer here.
Oh, okay. While the machines are tried and true, and the method's timeless, there is still the art form that comes with producing wine that is particular to each vintner. It's fascinating to think about how each stage of the process lends to the final product, the mystique of which can only be understood by sampling the wine itself. And lucky for us, While we've been working in the fields, Desiree and Jacqueline have been working in the kitchen preparing the food to pair with our wine. Nothing like breaking bread with people you spent the day harvesting with. It's evident why it continues to be an ageless custom. This is an experience where you literally reap the fruits of your labors when the day comes to an end. Quite satisfying, if I do say so myself. Coming up, we head for the gateway to the Gila Wilderness. Do you take a lot of pictures on your New Mexico travels? Well, if you do, show us by hashtagging New Mexico True on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The Gila Wilderness was designated the world's first wilderness area back in 1924. Many people venturing to the Gila look for a local outfitter to help introduce them to the many wonders of this wilderness. And for me, with this area being the homeland of the Apaches, the local Native American guide service Wolf Horse Outfitters looks to be the perfect way to go. Their base camp is just outside of Silver City in the Arenas Valley, just 2 hours northwest of Las Cruces off Highway 180. So Joe, where does the Wolf Horse come from?
Wolf Horse is a spiritual name, and it also depicts my family's tradition of being Native Scouts, being able to travel around and see what's going on and bring information back to the tribe or to the group.
Wolf Horse guides Joe Syens and Hank Ball take me out for a day trek through the Fort Barrett Elk Refuge.
It's not a very big refuge. It's intended more to create a corridor for the animals to go from the flats up to the mountains. Because of that, we get everything. Everything, bears, cougars, coyotes.
Beyond the potential of spotting wildlife, Joe has extensive knowledge of Apache history and culture, as well as their foraging techniques and survival skills that he shares with people on his treks. We continue on to the Dragonfly site, a location known for its petroglyphs.
For Apaches, it was about strategy. We didn't want anybody to know what we did, what we saw. But these Pueblo people that passed through here, they left quite a lot of sign. We see a swirl down there. What we have here is this figure here that people have believed it was a lizard. We have a man, and then we have a jackrabbit. What people don't sometimes realize about prickly pear is that it's also medicinal. The pad, besides eating it, Apaches also used it as a wound dressing, and you can put the gel on to promote healing on your wounds, cuts.
So everything technically had a use.
We had a very working, intimate knowledge of all the plants. Everything we did was to promote the health of the land, how we used plants, how we moved around. We weren't nomadic. We had very specific places we migrated to, and a lot of it was because of the harvesting of plants. People don't understand that Apaches were probably 60 to 70% plant eaters.
Undeniably, the Apaches were a resourceful people, and they knew this land better than anyone.
Traditionally, Apaches in our creation story, we have a flood story. And to us, that line which exists throughout this country, even all the way down to Deming and to the western mountains, it indicates the height of the flood. And when this vision came to the people that this flood was coming, Apaches were instructed to go higher up into the mountains. And we believe that that's why we became mountain people, because we got up high enough to get out of the flood.
Joe has taught me so much about the Apaches. I can't believe all that I've learned in just one day. This trek is the epitome of a great traveling experience. A trip where I'm exposed to a unique history and culture, my perspective is broadened, and I leave with a new appreciation for the land and the people that call it home. When you're ready to saddle up and head into the Gila Wilderness, here are some hints. Wolf Horse Outfitters is based in Arenas Valley, just 3 miles east of Silver City and less than 2 hours northwest of Las Cruces. For day rides, you have the option of scheduling an hourly ride, half day, or full day. But better yet, consider a multi-day pack trip, customized to your riding abilities and interests. All rides will focus on the surrounding environment and will be a minimum impact to the wilderness. Leave no trace. And now, here's another New Mexico true treasure.
Hi, I'm Andrea, and the City of Rock State Park is one of my New Mexico true treasures. So it is scenic and it is really pretty, but it's also just like you can run all over and go anywhere you want, and you can climb up rocks and you can climb over things, and you can hide from people around corners and in little cracks in the rocks. And it was just, every time I've been there, it's been a good time. There's trails that wind in and out of the rocks, and we're not talking rocks or boulders even, but more like geologic features that go way above your head. And it's just fun to explore, and so many places I go, it's like, stay on the trail, don't cut the switchback, follow this, and this isn't like that. It's just an opportunity to like find your own way around. It's fun.
Stay tuned for New Mexico's own winged migration. And now from the pages of New Mexico Magazine. Just south of Socorro and under 2 hours from Albuquerque is the Bosque del Apache National Wildlife Refuge. Throughout the year, this habitat makes an incredible destination for wildlife enthusiasts. Countless species of birds migrate here through the spring, summer, and fall. But the refuge is best known for the thousands of sandhill cranes and geese that winter here every year. This wetland stretches along the Rio Grande amidst cottonwoods and willow trees, providing a critical stopover for these birds, with the greatest numbers being from early November to mid-February. The Rocky Mountain sandhill cranes are abundant at Bosque del Apache. This subspecies is the largest of the sandhill cranes, standing 4 feet tall with a wingspan greater than 6 feet. They are primarily gray with a crimson crown on their heads and are truly magnificent creatures. The arrival of the sandhill cranes to Bosque del Apache brings droves of visitors every year, and the refuge even has an annual Festival of the Cranes to welcome them. But you can go any day of the week in the late fall and winter months to experience the spectacle for yourself. For the optimal experience, arrive before dawn where you will find the birds still easing their way into the day, waiting for the first rays of sunlight to break over the surrounding mountains. As soon as the sun makes its appearance, you will see and hear the wings of thousands of birds begin to take flight, heading northwards to feast in the fields along the river. Their movement seems sudden, but with such mass quantities of birds, their departure moves in a continuum, giving you plenty of time to gaze and wonder. The panoramic beauty of this refuge welcomes us just as it does these migratory birds. The habitat of the bosque in this exquisite early morning light has its own color palette, one that is sure to implant itself in your memory. To witness more of the wildlife of this refuge, take the auto tour loop or hike the trails to catch a glimpse of any number of birds. Hawks, eagles, blackbirds, roadrunners, and herons, among others, may be spotted. Not to mention mule deer, coyotes, and jackrabbits who also make the bosque their home. But you will probably want to make your way back to the viewing decks in the afternoon, because just as sure as the sun will set, the cranes and geese will return in late afternoon to roost for the night. At sunset, with these birds crossing through the sky, streaming steadily into their temporary home, is a sight not to be missed. For more great stories like this from New Mexico Magazine, visit newmexico.org. Don't go away, we have a giant treat for your taste buds coming up next. 2.5 hours south of Albuquerque and only 40 miles north of Las Cruces on I-25 is Hatch, the chili capital of the world. So what better place to stop and grab a green chili cheeseburger? I must admit, my appetite is driving this visit to Hatch. I'm headed to Sparky's, arguably one of the best places in the state to satisfy the craving of all cravings, a New Mexico favorite, the green chili cheeseburger. Yes, Sparky's has become an institution of sorts, inspiring many folks to make the trek to Hatch. Some of you out there may already relate. Pulling into Hatch, you'll notice there's more to this town than its sprawling chili fields and roadside chili vendors. Towering overhead, giant statues line the main road. As it turns out, these enormous figurines are simply ushering you to your destination. Yes, they are part of the Sparky's experience as well. Owner and founder of Sparky's, Tico, has always been a collector of vintage pieces, no matter how large. These characters are all part of his collection, and with each visit to town, expect to see new ones pop up. From the inside out, treasures abound. There's no shortage of things to feast your eyes on, but we all know the real feast happens once you place your order. The aromas of smoked sausage and brisket make tantalizing option for these anxious customers in line. But for me, there's no other choice but the world famous. Hello!
What can I get you?
What's the best thing on the menu?
The green chili cheeseburger.
All right, is that world famous thing?
Yes, sir.
All right, is it world famous?
Yes, it is world famous.
All right, then give me one of those.
How would you like that cooked?
Medium well,
Medium well?
please. Also, can I get a green chili lemonade?
Yes,
That
you may.
sounds very special.
That'll be all for you?
All right, when in Hatch, I have to do it. And I don't even have to dine alone. Dylan, the son of this family-run operation, joins me and fills me in on how Sparky's came to be such a newly beloved institution.
Oh.
Hi, I have a world famous with pork.
Yes, thank you so much.
Anything else for you?
No, I'm set right now. Thank
Enjoy.
you.
There
Thank
it
you.
is.
The world famous. People all around the state are talking about this burger. It's world famous.
And also just that you can come see like a weird statue that everyone's making a fuss about or talking about or anything.
Yeah.
And then my mom built the outside metal robot.
So it's been a
holding the water
family
pump.
business since the beginning. Like everybody hands in, get it done. Kind of
Yeah,
thing.
absolutely. I think if it wasn't for my mom, my dad would just be sitting out of like a metal building with no, picnic tables and tablecloths.
Like, what was it like in the first stages?
Well, the first stages would have been the first building where you ordered, and you could have only gotten world famous, which I believe was called the world famous.
Okay, it was always
on day
world
one,
famous.
yeah.
You setting yourself up for success, right?
I'm just gonna call it the world famous, and we'll just see if it makes it or not. So it's always been the name, and you could have gotten pulled pork, brisket, and ribs.
Oh wow!
4 items, and that was it.
So do you have any favorite things or things that you want on the menu?
As far as talking to him about something that I mentioned, maybe we should try this. He's very nice and he listens, and
that's about it.
But sometimes I'm thinking, I can already tell he doesn't want to do it, but he's always been right in the end,
right?
Because he's patient and he wants to make something where he can repeat it for every customer, can always expect that taste.
The consistency.
He doesn't want to lose the consistency.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
Right.
And people are coming back for the green chili cheeseburger day in, day out.
And I think they like just how simple it is.
Right. Totally.
It's
simplicity.
It's a little startling at first, actually. That it didn't come with other things on it, but it's just simple, and you get the flavors, and there's 3 or 4, but they're really strong and they're coming at you.
Yeah.
And some, like the beans and the slaw, that's old family recipes.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of that stuff just got passed down. And the corn.
That's good. Whoa. It's like, you have your sweet corn, but then it's like New Mexico style. Boom, green chili. It's spicy, but it's still sweet. Cheers to that, my friend.
Cheers.
Wash down some green chili with some green chili.
Coming up, find out what a Quaker cannon is and the role a legendary New Mexican fort played in the Civil War. Sign up to receive monthly newsletters about events and happenings around the state at newmexico.org. Fort Craig sits just 35 miles south of Socorro. After exiting off I-25, you go 11 miles on Highway 1, following signs for the fort. By today's standards, Fort Craig may feel a bit off the beaten path, but in its day, it was situated along the most trafficked route in this land, El Camino Real. Established in 1854, Fort Craig was one of the 8 forts placed along the Rio Grande and the historic El Camino Real to help stave off Indian raids and to aid the Union in the Civil War. It was one of the biggest and most important forts in the West, and ultimately played host to the largest Civil War battle in the Southwest. I'm meeting with local archaeologist Sarah Stebbins to get a better glimpse into the history of these ruins.
There would have been 2 companies of enlisted men, 80 men total, with officers, sergeants, non-coms, and a commanding officer, and this was his residence.
What's left of it?
Yes, alas, what's left of it.
What role did this play in the bigger scheme of the Civil War?
December of 1861, the word came up from the South that the Confederates were coming over from Texas and planned to come up the Rio Grande to take Santa Fe, the territorial capital, and also move toward the gold fields of Colorado. So, Kit Carson and his New Mexico volunteers were brought down to Fort Craig. They weren't immediately told to stand and fight. They probably were handed shovels and were told to build these earthworks so that when the Confederates came up from the south, they would have faced this earthwork with cannons on top of it, some of which, of course, were not cannon at all. They were logs painted to look like cannon. They're called Quaker cannon because obviously...
You're not going to hurt anybody with that.
Absolutely. But they managed to keep the Confederates at enough of a distance so they did not realize the fort did not have that much artillery. Basically, Fort Craig and the 2 battles that were fought here in Valverde, which is just at the north end of Black Mesa, and Glorieta, up by Pecos, stopped the Confederacy from taking over the Colorado gold fields and being able to reach the Pacific, because they had a plan that was going to take the slave states all the way across the country to the California coast. Fort Craig and those two battles stopped them, which is important
That's pretty
enough.
significant.
That's fairly significant. If they had won in New Mexico, it would have changed the entire history of the United States.
Civil War reenactments and living history events bring these dramatic historical events to life. Call the BLM Socorro office for more info on upcoming events. Fort Craig sets off Highway 1, an incredibly scenic and rolling highway that parallels El Camino Real on the stretch between Elephant Butte and Socorro. My advice is take the quieter and slower highway versus the interstate to get a better sense of the remoteness and beauty of these locations. We're glad you could join us for these one-of-a-kind experiences in this enchanting part of our state. Hopefully they give you some ideas for excursions of your own. With that being said, what are you doing next weekend?